the don'ts was, and I had this early on in my career, I had one producer, director who told me is that whether you're walking, you're fighting, you're dancing, you're angry, you should always look feminine.
इसका मतलब क्या है?
Exactly. But this was literally a brief given to me when I was, and the funny part was I learned how to walk like a girl in those times, whatever that definition meant, in a movie, because that was like the first part of my training. Like they were like, "आप ना थोड़ा भाई जैसा चलती है, तो ना थोड़ा लड़की जैसा चलिए." And I was like, okay, now you'll have to train me for that, because in my school I was a dada. I would fight for samosas. I mean,
you were a good old gundi, basically.
I was a gundi. It was very clear I have to become an actress and I have to dance in the snow wearing a chiffon sari. Like this was a very strong goal in my life. I felt like the moment I realized my source of joy is sev puri, you know, or it's just
you have just won my heart. It is like I had a t-shirt in journalism school in New York at Columbia, and it said, "When I eat corn, I see God." So I feel like that about food, and I particularly feel like that about sev puri.
Yeah, I've seen men play abusive characters, play, you know, there's violence, there's all kinds of things that's probably even illegal, but they become superstars. But an actress all of a sudden is bad charactered, which makes no sense. That doesn't, like, I can't wrap my head around it. Especially the audience that's seen me do my South Indian cinema, they are conservative. I understand that. I was there myself. I for 18 years said I will never kiss on screen.
Yeah, you had a no kissing contract.
I had a no kissing contract. I can do Bubbly Bouncer, I can do a Lust Stories, I can do a Jee Karda, and I can do another project which is completely
and that is your repertoire as an actor. Women are not supposed to be funny.
Yeah, bye.
So, are you funny?
I think I'm very funny.
and do you feel you have to hold it in?
No.
Tamannah said to marry US doctor, ? Tamannah said to marry Pakistan cricketer, ? Tamannah said to marry whoever is Mumbai businessman, ? etc., etc. And so it goes. And by the end of this research, they were like, 5 such men, 5 such articles. True or not is not the point. It was insane. I mean, it was almost like, and I think you had a great comment. You said, "I'm not on a husband shopping expedition with a Pakistani cricketer."
Bichara, I felt so bad.
But like,
yeah, Barkha, sorry, I have to laugh.
No, please laugh.
Like, I am an individual. I don't have any responsibility. He's married with 2 kids.
Yeah.
And he's in some other country.
Yes.
That's for people who don't know, it's the very famous cricketer Abdul Razak ji, and he. I mean, we met at we were just holding jewelry pieces in some store, and I was like, mazak mein Abdul Razak ho gaya. And I was like,
has it been with Vijay?
Oh, I mean, I am the happiest I've been, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being.
And an equal partner.
Absolutely equal partner.
You were 14 years old when you first stepped onto a film set. So living in the public eye has been part of your life for years. Has it ever got really difficult? I know the good side of fame, I know the good side of recognition, but I think a lot of people don't understand the fishbowl syndrome, the fact that someone's eye is always on you and what that can feel like. Has it ever been really difficult?
I think the moment you become an actor, it comes with the territory. You have to be ready that this is going to be a very large part of your life. But then I feel like when I started working, which was 18 years ago, I felt like that time there was a lot of definition around how you should be, how should a female actor be, how she can talk. She has to always be a certain way, very graceful, very feminine, can't fumble, can't have a moment. At least that's what we saw. Even I saw that as growing up as a kid. That's what I saw of actors. And also there wasn't social media, so there wasn't any insight into actors' lives. So it was quite mysterious. So I think that time when I started, a lot of mystery was there around actors, which is not there today. So I think today it's slowly becoming easy to not feel like your privacy is invaded.
Because you feel more like yourself today?
Yeah, because I guess you get to put your perspective out. I think back in the day, it was only when we spoke in an interview or we, gave out a piece is when people got our perspective. But today, if you want to say anything, even if you make it on your social media, it still reaches out to so many people.
But talk a little bit about this idea of the female actor, the do's and the don'ts, right? So, what were the don'ts?
The don'ts was, and I had this early on in my career. I had one producer, director who told me is that whether you're walking, you're fighting, you're dancing, you're angry, you should always look feminine.
Iska matlab kya hai?
Exactly. But this was literally a brief given to me when I was, and the funny part was I learned how to walk like a girl in those times, whatever that definition meant, in a movie, because that was like the first part of my training. Like they were like, "Aap na thoda bhai jaisa chalti hai, na thoda ladki jaisa chaliye." And I was like, okay, now you'll have to train me for that, because in my school I was a dada.
Yeah.
I would fight for samosas.
Yeah.
I mean,
you were a good old gundi, basically.
I was a gundi,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. And I was always very clear, I have to become an actress and I have to dance in the snow wearing a chiffon sari. Like this was a very strong goal in my life. Of course, as I moved further into becoming an actor, I realized there's so much to tab, and the amount of characters you get to play. You don't have to be yourself. You can be everyone else. So I feel like I enjoyed that, but I think essentially I just as a kid really knew what I wanted.
So was it a very suffocating, regimented sense of being feminine? The whole idea of what is feminine today, what is masculine today is it's very, we live in the age of gender fluidity.
Yes.
But at that time, did you feel suffocated?
It was physically exhausting. Like just even simply keeping your back arched in a certain way.
I feel like I have to sit up listening
to
it.
And I would just have to be like aware of my shoulders all the time. And I think these things impacted me early on in my, growing up and being an actor. But I think I started to cut out the noise that people kept bringing in. I felt like essentially I think I came onto becoming my own only when I started to cut that noise off and started to listen to what I think is feminine. And I feel like that's the only time you can authentically be feminine, because it has to be your perspective. It can't be everyone else's perspective.
How do you remain real? You feel very real. I don't say that to a lot of actors. I see their mask. It takes time for their mask to fall. Some fall easy. You see Mary's. How do you keep it real, considering the arc lights sort of have been part of your life since you were a teenage girl?
Yeah.
What keeps you real? Who keeps you real? Do you have people who make fun of you?
Oh, yeah. My friends bring me down. My brother brings me down.
What are the mean things they say to you to keep you real?
They'd be like, इसमें बहुत overacting किया है, थोड़ा कम करो. Or they'd be like, who dances like that? Or I don't know. I get a lot of fun criticism for my work, which I enjoy, because I feel like only my really loved ones can give me that true perspective. But having said that, I think what kept me grounded is, I got success very early on in my career, like at 17. My first very successful film was at 17. And then it happened again. It happened at 22, 23, 25. So I saw success. And every time I saw success, I realized it wasn't the place that gave me happiness. It wasn't joy that came out of that. It was relief that came out of that. It was mostly like, thank God, ye film chal gayi. Now I can do more work, the kind of work I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, there will be another opportunity. But it was not my source of joy. And I felt like the moment I realized my source of joy is Sev Puri. Or it's just simple things.
You have just won my heart. It is like I had a T-shirt in journalism school in New York at Columbia, and it said, "When I eat corn, I see God." So I feel like that about food, and I particularly feel like that about Sev Puri.
Yeah, it does that. Yeah. I mean, if I'm getting an award, I'm eating Sev Puri. If I'm having a flop film, I'm eating Sev Puri. If if I'm going to probably meet, like, I don't know, the most important person on this planet, I am still eating Sev Puri. So if my life is only about that, then why I don't have to keep any of my these guards up, and all are just I think they're exhausting.
But what I am relieved to hear is that you eat, because
I love food, actually.
No, I'm very happy to hear that, because I feel like in this age of social media and Instagram, where everything is a kind of manufactured image and we have filters to make ourselves look better, if not feel better, young girls are growing up with some weird idea of beauty and feeling shit when they don't conform to that idea, and often giving up on food to look that idea, right? Now, I just want to understand from you how you keep a healthy self-image. Have there been phases? And I've spoken to some extraordinarily independent female actors who have gone through these phases.
Yeah.
Have you been through these phases where you have hated your body, where you have slipped into depression, where you've done things that you would tell other girls and women, please don't do that?
I just know one thing. Every time I look at my old photos, I'm like, I want to be that fat when I thought I was fat, but actually I was thin.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know. Your metabolism is different when you're 18.
Correct.
And as you grow older,
Correct.
just as a human being, your metabolism is going to slow down. So I just figured that if I don't eat and if I have to work really hard, which I love doing, I won't have the physical energy and I will feel dead by the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's if I don't eat. If I eat, I'll have to work out and then I will feel dead by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I realized I'm going to feel dead at the end of the day.
So may as well
I
you do
will eat
it.
and I will feel dead. So
Good for you.
that's something I figured.
Let's talk a little bit about something that hasn't been joyful. Certainly hasn't been joyful like Safe Puri is. And that is vicious trolling. Now, for some of us who've lived in the public eye, this is literally par for the course, but it should not have to be.
Yeah.
Now, this has to do with the fact that after being a relatively conservative on-screen actor in the South, you decided to embrace your sexuality on screen. And people had a range of reactions, and some said good for you, but some said really terrible, misogynistic, sexist things.
Yeah.
Has it been tough? Has it been hurtful?
You know, I find it strange. The misogyny is so it's so stark in my face. And I was hoping that by 2023 that wouldn't be the case. But this time around, it felt really stark. Primarily because, when I started being an actor when I was really young, I was still dancing and looking glamorous. So it wasn't like I've had a non-glamorous image. All of a sudden, it's turned into something. I just found it strange that even in 2023, why does a female actor need to have this definition of if she's doing intimacy, it's a personal attack. Like I've seen men do it all the time. I have seen men play abusive characters, there's violence, there's all kinds of things that's probably even illegal, but they become superstars. But an actress all of a sudden is bad charactered, which makes no sense. That doesn't, I can't wrap my head around it. And I realized that for me, after 18 years, my idea is to, if I had to really stick to my comfort zone, I could have very well done all kinds of commercial films after one commercial hit after another, because that's the easiest route.
Sure.
But for me, I came to a point, I was like, I have to grow as an artist. Today, because of the kind of consumption of cinema or any piece of content, it's global. It's not only our country that's sitting and watching.
What is the kind of misogynistic thing that you've had to deal with? You've said it's terrible misogyny. What's the worst thing you've read about yourself?
Worst thing I've read about myself.
Or heard about yourself.
इसको क्या मजबूरी थी कि ये ऐसे scenes कर रही हैं and all that. I found that really strange because as an artist, we are supposed to, tomorrow if I play a serial killer, that makes me a bad person.
So basically they're saying if you're a sexual person on screen as a woman, your morality has been judged.
Yes. But I find that strange because if it wasn't for that one physical need that we have, none of us would really be here. So, also, and look at our population. So clearly that's not an issue in
but
this
this hypocrisy about sex is entrenched.
It is never ending.
And it's always worse when it comes to women than it is when it comes to men. But this sort of assault on your moral code, as it were, have you been able to laugh it off? The first time you had to deal with it, did you feel angry? Did you feel hurt? Did you feel a little bit petrified? Did you feel like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Like, what went through your mind the first time you had to confront it?
Barkha, for me, the most important thing was, I have seen actors say this in interviews, and I find that's really strange that, I do this because it makes me happy. I am here because of a very big audience.
Yeah.
They've made me. I can't do this if it's not for my audience. So I understand, especially the audience that's seen me do my South Indian cinema, they are conservative. I understand that. I was there myself. I for 18 years said I will never kiss on screen.
Yeah, you had a no kissing
I
contract.
had a no kissing contract.
Well, let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure.
What made
I'll
you
come
do
to
that?
I mean, see, when I started working, I was 14. So I gave a promise to my parents ki, you know what, I will not do something that makes you uncomfortable. And of course, it's been a while and I have evolved as a person. For me, the biggest thing is, I can't play more characters and more people if I'm not actually evolving as a human being. Mm-hmm. If I'm evolving as a person, I can play more complex, interesting characters on screen.
Sure.
And that is my quest. My quest is not to get defined, because for me, that is death. That is death as an actor. The day
boredom is death.
Yeah, it is. The moment I feel like, I recently did a film called Bubbly Bouncer, which came out last year.
Yes.
Which was about a female bouncer. Again, a girl in a world which is largely men-led. And my next release is going to be in which my character is a cop. So that's the profession that she belongs to. Again, in a man's world. But I think, see, I can do a Bubbly Bouncer, I can do a Lust Stories, I can do a Jee Karda, and I can do another project which is completely
and
different.
that is your repertoire as an actor.
Yeah.
But I think you made an important point that, a lot of people would pretend saying, I do it for myself, I don't care what people think. Of course, trolls are not people and it takes time to get used to that idea. But you're saying that when you were first judged in this way, you were worried.
The thing was, it was a shock for me. I wasn't worried. There's a difference, because I feel like some part of me was aware of what kind of reaction I could possibly get for this, but I just didn't understand the level of misogyny that existed. As I saw that...
And were things really coarse, and was it coarse and awful?
No, it's just to see that what happens is becomes really strange for actors when media starts reporting it. See, a certain app can have random anonymous people talking anything, and that doesn't matter, because it's that particular section of the public speaking who has no face. But when the media starts reporting it, then it becomes like it's news. But why would you give that kind of power to random people and make them news? For me, that's
I'm
the problem.
so glad you've said it, because, when I was sort of researching before I met you, I saw a bunch of media stories, and what they had done was they had copied and pasted into their copy really misogynistic tweets. Right? So you're pretending to be respectable. You're pretending to write a respectable story about, what Tamannah is going through, but actually you're amplifying the poison.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I understand. We are in the zone of social media today where everything is everyone's attention span is 15 seconds. So everyone wants a screen grab, which is like, oh, okay, how can I clickbait this?
Yeah.
So I get that. But I just feel like media is very powerful. And I feel like I felt sad. I felt sad that day that, that something that's that powerful as a tool is being used really badly.
Will it make you reconsider being sort of, doing a sexualized role on screen the next time?
No, in fact, I feel like when I see like amazing actors that I look up to, like Kate Winslet, she won an Oscar for, The Reader, where she had so much intimacy and she had a lot of very, very graphic, scenes. But you know what happens today? You're a global actor. You're a global citizen, and people are watching your cinema everywhere. We can't half-ass this. We have to make sure that we give authenticity to what we are doing. So if I'm convinced by a story, I'm not the same Tamannah at 15 who started working.
How did your parents feel about it?
You know what? I feel like they've evolved with me.
Yeah.
Which is my biggest success, I think, as a human being. That to be able to have parents and family that has not, in this, हर मर्द के पीछे एक औरत होती है. I feel like behind successful women, there are very broad-minded and strong men. And in my case, it's been my father. And I'm so glad that I didn't come in the peer pressure of, कि औरतें एक टाइम बॉम्ब है, कभी भी फट सकती हैं, अभी उनकी शादी होनी चाहिए, अभी उनके साथ ये होना चाहिए, अभी उनके साथ वो होना चाहिए. That ideology, my dad and my mom never even made me feel that. And that is the reason I grew as an individual, and then my family also grew. And I know for me, for example, for my future, it is the men in your life that actually bring that kind of awareness, that this obsession for a time, like except for your biological clock, which is literally like scientific to a woman. I think.
And now you have frozen eggs and frozen embryos, so science is evolving even in that space.
Yeah. But I'm saying, apart from that which is scientific, I feel like a woman should not have these timelines, or any human being should not have these timelines.
I agree.
कि ये time पे होना चाहिए, time पे होना चाहिए. I mean, 10th and 12th का fear तो हम सब में था ना, और क्या हुआ? उस रिजल्ट का कौन सा हम कॉपी लेके घूमते हैं?
हाँ, thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God.
But like just the fear that was
fail
instilled in us. So I think as an artist, you should also be allowed to fail. There should be so much. I think there's not enough emphasis on failure. I think this idea of, and how will an actor find out where they want to be if they don't fail?
I agree. And I think people who don't take risks are very boring, who don't experiment are very boring. But I want to ask you a little bit of a sort of complex question. And as a feminist, it's kind of something I've tried to wrap my head around, and I don't have the perfect answer.
Okay.
We grew up saying there's a male gaze. There's a certain way the camera and a man behind the camera looks at a female body, especially in mass media, in popular culture, in our cinema. And then women said, you know what, we will set the terms for our own sexuality. Yeah. But that balance between how the male gaze, how a male-dominated world looks at the female body and how a woman looks at herself, it's tough to find. You don't know when you're being conditioned, you don't know when you're totally free. So let's talk about, all this attention you've got for sort of being this sexual person on screen. How do you as a thoughtful, thinking actor ensure that you are being yourself and you aren't being objectified by somebody's lens?
See, the moment I'm on screen, I'm a character. So for me, that's a big immunization that happens to most actors. When we, like how doctors have to be immunized to, say, a body in front of them. A soldier has to be immunized to the idea of killing people.
Yeah.
Actors are immunized to the idea of the act or deed they're conducting to that degree. Yeah. Because as actors, yes, we're public figures, the responsibility is there, but at the same time, we are actors. We are definitely not playing ourselves. Apart from that, I felt like recently I have worked with, Jee Karda, which was a long format show. I had a female director who was 7 months pregnant, who shot the show. Yeah. She presented me in a really, there was intimacy, but she presented me beautifully. I didn't at one point also feel uncomfortable or felt objectified or felt... So I saw the difference when a woman perceives it. And then now I work with Sujoy
in Lust Stories,
basically a filmmaker who's always glorified women.
Yeah.
Now, even for him, Lust Stories is the first project where he's showcasing intimacy. So he was I guess he was also treading a new path that I was treading. So we both were kind of figuring this out together. And I, as an artist, I put my foot down in terms of this is what I want. This is what I think I'm comfortable doing as a person. As much as immunization I would have as an actor. And I think the moment I have that conversation with my filmmaker and I have an understanding, then we get to executing it like any other scene. There has to be that little bit of dispassion while you conduct it. Otherwise, you can't objectively look at it.
Are there certain things, as you evolve? Like I remember a few years ago, before Priyanka Chopra had sort of migrated to outside of India, and I was doing a show with her, and I said, is this something that you used to do that today you say, that was wrong? And she thought about it and she said, lightening products. I don't want to endorse, and I have in the past. I don't want to endorse skin lightening products.
Sure.
I was very young when I used to do that. It was the norm.
Yeah.
Today, I am more thoughtful about some of those choices. So I'm just wondering, are they those set of choices for you, or do you feel mostly comfortable with all the choices you've made?
I think for me, the only thing I'm very, very... very conscious about right now is I want to work with people who are collaborative. Because what's happened in my past is I have realized that we are teams making films, not an individual making films. And inevitably we come under the crossfire of a bunch of people's egos, a bunch of people's ideas, which are just sometimes whimsical. So it's very important to have collaborations that are in the true sense collaborative. I think that's one thing I really want to change.
Can I ask you about Baahubali?
Yes, of course.
And I ask you this because of what you said, and I'm not making any sort of insinuations here.
Yeah.
But it is sort of this blockbuster epic success.
Yes.
And maybe you would have wanted more place in the arc light of that success than you got. Do you feel that?
That's what a lot of people think I feel. But actually, I feel very validated from that film, Barkha. The reason being, that film actually got me into the minds of really young kids. Because a lot of really young kids watch Baahubali, they still think I'm the butterfly girl. There's so many things about that film. See, some films you don't just need to hog center stage. I mean, I've done a lot of ensemble work in my career.
Yeah.
I mean, strangely enough, I don't know why that does happen. My first big success was an ensemble. Again, Baahubali happened to be one. I recently did a show, Jee Karda, which is also an ensemble. I'm very secure as an actor. I don't have this feeling. I know my skill and the impact I have on screen. I'll get 5 scenes. I will do it to that perfection that people will remember me.
But do the men have it easier?
The men have...
and do they get more money?
They definitely get a lot more money, which is, the pay parity is something that I have not been able to wrap my head around, because women also bring in so much. And that difference is stark at this point.
And why aren't more of you speaking up?
This is why I'm here. I mean, I'm here to talk about not just this, but so many other things. You know what happened, Barkha, when I was really young, I felt, मुझे बात करनी है जब मेरे पास experience हो. या तो मेरा काम बात करना चाहिए. My work should speak for itself. I never spoke when I was much younger. I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because I felt like I don't even have... Everything that's heard and said is different, but something that's experiential, that is different. And today I come from 18 years of experience. So I have gone through various projects.
You feel you've earned sort of this space where you can make this point.
Yeah, and I also feel like today it makes sense for me to share my experiences with people, because I've actually had those experiences. I'm not talking from a space of hearsay. So for me, when I say that, yes, even today, women need to... It is something where we are constantly fighting egos. For me, that is a battle even now. And I'll tell you, it's so strange, but I find this ego battle happening without disrespect. I mean, there is a hierarchy that exists. I try to, in my teams at least, try to deconstruct it as much as I can. But because the hierarchy is so strong, I see it in every... If just one person comes with a crazy attitude ki, ye mera dimag hai, bas then you're in deep trouble.
Are these egos or male egos?
They are largely male egos. We cannot deny that. They are largely male egos, but I still feel like I've seen it with women also. So it's not just...
women can be misogynistic and men can be feminist. But generally speaking...
I've worked largely I've worked on sets where there used to only be 2 women. At least back in the day. Today it's changed so much. Like today on all the projects I'm working on, there's like even the Telugu films I'm working on, which is largely a male-centric industry. I'm doing a film with Chiranjeevi, so that's supposed to come out soon. We have all female ladies. So that's bringing in a fresher perspective, even in a commercial format. So it's really necessary to have...
What's the toughest thing about being female in this industry? You've said 2 things that have stayed with me. One, the classic idea or the imposed idea of what is feminine, which thankfully is changing. 2, the pay parity issue, right? 3 is obviously the kind of roles that were on offer earlier. I think that's the one thing that's really
largely changed.
Yeah.
Largely changed.
What still has to change that really hasn't?
I think people don't still write women-led roles which feel like they can hold the film together. That is also part of writing only. It doesn't come through just by playing a great character. I think you need to find interesting, more commercially palatable ways. And I have been a commercial audience. I am actually a commercial audience. I love... Like for me, my favorite film is Divergent in the recent past. Now that is Hollywood ka commercial cinema. It's not their arty. It's not their sensible or whatever that like...
It's not art house.
It's not that cinema. But I find it, I find this sort of power in commercial cinema if done right. And I feel like that right needs to come into women. Right now it's only, that domain is only for men. That needs to happen to women. But people are scared to put the big bucks there because that... It's an expensive art form. We need people to invest that kind of money.
How do you stop yourself from being like a cookie cutter version of stardom? And I was particularly struck, I think you told Anupama Chopra that you actually needed to work on fashion because you found at one point that everybody was kind of looking identical, right? And there is this sort of assembly line thing to fashion. Like very few people, in particular very few women, want to be individuals, right? You go with the trend, you go with the season. It's counterintuitive to say that fashion is important to being individualistic in identity, but explain that to me.
I just think there has to be an innate sense of style. I think if you've survived for a long time in a visual medium like the movies are, I think you need to have that. Otherwise, I don't think people connect with us. It's always been about, in the commercial mainstream of cinema, it's always been a visual medium. Even today, it is. Why are we still stuck in that cookie cutter format? Is primarily because that is what is consumed the most. Because it's still aspirational, right? So I just came to a point where I felt like, okay, I understand this is aspirational, but it has to be my perspective now. It can't be what everyone thinks of it as, acceptable or likable or aspirational. So I've had to find my own aspirational. What is in my understanding aspirational to me?
I think you also have said that your entry point into cinema was fashion when you were young.
Yeah, as a kid. I mean, when you're 5 and 6, you look at Karishma Kapoor's clothes, you look at Madhuri Dixit's makeup, saris. That's what you'll get into you'll get charmed by. But then as you get more into it, you realize there's so much more to it. But the beginning is there.
So, one of the things when you and I were chatting before this conversation started, and you said, women are not supposed to be funny.
Yeah,
So,
bye.
are you funny?
I think I'm very funny.
and do you feel you have to hold it in?
No. With my near and dear ones, they've seen that side a lot. I just feel like with bubbly, I somewhere got a chance to
be funny.
I hate using that word though.
What?
Like say he's such a funny guy or she's such a funny girl. But I just feel like humor has been such a male gene, and I just feel like it's terrible.
Yeah.
I think the moment you add humor into anything, it increases the way someone can accept it.
Yeah, totally.
You can say some really big things the moment you put humor.
But I'm just wondering whether you have learned to laugh at some of the weird things you read about yourself. And I have to tell you, I had a bit of a giggle because I was sent all this research about you. And every fifth article marries you off to somebody else over the years, right? So this is by the way a reflection on our media and not a reflection on you or anything else. But so Tamannah said to marry US doctor ? Tamannah said to marry Pakistan cricketer ? Tamannah said to marry whoever is Mumbai businessman ? etc. etc. So it goes. And by the end of this research, they were like 5 such men, 5 such articles. True or not is not the point. It was insane. I mean, it was almost like, and I think you had a great comment. You said, I'm not on a husband shopping expedition. When you read this kind of crap about yourself, right? Do you learn to laugh at it?
No, it actually makes me understand that what is the mentality of people here today.
Yeah, man.
It's a big reflection. I'll tell you why. Say if I actually marry off to any of these people, right? In a societal environment, this is acceptable. I have to actually I have to thank my father that he raised me like a man, even though I'm his daughter. I don't have that idea that I need a man to depend
complete
on.
You.
No, yeah, I'm a fully whole individual, and I don't need that. That is for a relationship is for companionship. A relationship is for fulfillment, love, for the sweeter emotions of life. And I just found it interesting. It gave me a perspective that the society, if it had its way, they would even decide who you should be with. The moment you do something that's not in the order,
arranged marriage industry.
Yeah, but I think that's a big problem for women today. I feel like the younger girls, some who are much younger than me and some who are my age, the peer pressure is for real. But why? Why don't I think the emphasis on financial independence for women needs to really increase? And if I could ever do something, I think I only studied till the 10th standard. And 12th I did by correspondence.
Yeah.
That's because I started working very young. I knew I wanted to be an actor. I worked towards the movies that I was on board with, and it was completely my vision of what I wanted for myself. And I was a very, very, very clear-headed 13-year-old. But today I'm looking at women and I just feel like there's this. I see people's relationships, lives falling apart because we have grown up on some idealistic idea, maybe because of the reading material or the art forms that we've consumed or cinema, where it always presents this idealistic world, but that world doesn't exist. And you know what? That realization I have in the recent past seen people in their 20s have, people in their 30s have, people in their 60s have.
Yeah.
And that mirage is going to disappear for different people at different times.
When did it disappear for you?
I think it disappeared last year.
Because?
Last year, I had a personal scenario where I realized that that there is no time bomb. There isn't a time bomb. There is no need for anything if it's going to inconvenience you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of conveniencing yourself is so underrated, and also the idea that why should a person take on responsibility when you're not strong enough to take it?
Do you think women are too conditioned, like you said, by the reading material, by the cinema, by society, by relatives, by peers, to be obsessed with the idea of finding love?
Yeah. I feel like you're always, if you're like a halfway evolved person, you haven't fully figured out yourself, you're always going to find a compromised version of yourself in your partner. And hence there'll always be this feeling of incomplete or something off. So it's always a compromised version.
Sure.
I feel like the day you find yourself, or you feel like you found yourself, is a good time to go in that direction. Otherwise, you're just going to find different kind of compromised versions and be in some random patterns of...
How difficult is it to get asked about your personal life? I know you've done a spate of interviews about your relationship with Vijay Varma. Please note that I buried it towards the end of the interview, not because, I love Vijay. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the most important thing to talk to you about, right? You're not here as his partner. You're here as you. My question is slightly different. My question is, the number of questions you will get asked to explain that relationship. I was seeing, questions that, ask you about whether you've had sex on your first date and things like that. Some are really the realm of bizarro questions. Like, I don't even know how people ask other people this question. And I pretty much ask everybody anything I want.
Sure.
And I would not talk like that. Is it tough? Is it tough to have like a personal relationship, for instance, with Vijay under the microscope, reading about yourself in, online?
Yeah. I think for a large part of my life, I've kept myself away from talking about my personal life.
Yeah.
And I think it largely came from a lack of understanding of myself. Today, I feel complete and whole and happy and peaceful and joyful, where I feel that whatever I speak comes from a place of heart, and I feel like the one thing that always connects with people is heart. I also came to a point where I felt like I didn't feel the need to hide.
No,
So
exactly.
That's exactly
You
the
live
reason.
your life on your
I just
terms.
came to a place where I was happy to.
But you
speak.
can't always be...
No, of course not.
You can't have a reductionist conversation which is all about who you're dating, right?
Yeah,
and likewise for him, it isn't just for women.
I really think for actors, it's great table conversations where always everyone wants to know who they're dating and who's in their life.
It's the gossip for dinner for people. It's random. But here's my question. It sounds to me like you haven't always been amused by the scrutiny, by the rumor mongering. I think when you were, for example, doing some event of a jewelry showroom with a Pakistani cricketer.
Bichara, I felt so bad. Barkha, sorry, I have to laugh.
No, please laugh.
I am an individual. I don't have any responsibility. He's married with 2 kids,
yeah.
And he's in some other country.
Yes.
That's, for people who don't know, it's the very famous cricketer Abdul Razak Ji, and we met at we were just holding jewelry pieces in some store, and I was like, mazak mein Abdul Razak ho gaya. And I was like, I felt bad for him. Honestly, I felt bad for him because he has a family.
You should have stayed with that. I'm saying this is very prejudicial. I think that's the word you use. This is prejudicial. This is ill-informed. And all of it is funny when you look back at it.
Like, common sense kidhar hai? I mean, how can someone, when did they write, didn't they check how old is he or what's his life, and the fact that he's in an absolutely different country?
Yeah, but you are still in an industry where there still used to be speculation about whether women work after getting married. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still in that level of.
I have been in like arranged marriage proposal situations where I have been told that it's great, you've achieved so much. We're so happy that you're such a big star, but
Really?
but you have to stop.
And you have said what?
And I have said no, and I have left. But I think those were the moments I realized who I really was. I cannot enter any equation which is the fact that women are expected to compromise on their most basic feelings is something I never could.
How has it been with Vijay?
Oh, I am the happiest I've been. And he's a wonderful, wonderful human being.
And an equal partner.
Absolutely equal partner. And a really, I think he has a lot of very strong women in his life. And I feel like that's what it takes. When there are strong women around you and you respect those women, you'll always respect your woman then, And I feel like that's what we as a generation need to do. Make sure that when we have sons, we teach them how to treat women instead of asking women how they should behave with men around them, So the men need to do that.
and it's just nice to see people happy and of course that's wonderful. But let's take it back to where it all began. Who was this 13-year-old Tamannah? Grew up in Mumbai?
Mumbai, yes.
Yes.
From Mumbai.
Always in Mumbai? Bombay?
Always in Mumbai.
Okay. Where in Bombay?
Lokhandwala.
Lokhandwala. I know. I was saying to you. I thought you were Punjabi, and you explained to me that you're Sindhi, and I said from where, and you said Lokhandwala. So that was hilarious. However, tell us about your family. Like, how does Tamannaah Bhatia at 13 say to her parents, "I want to be an actor"? Yeah. What sort of upbringing did you have? Tell us a little bit. Take us back there.
So, my family has largely been, either into businesses. My dad's entire side of the family are doctors. Most of them are in the States. But my dad always was very fond of our country. And he never wanted to leave India. And so he stayed back, had his businesses. I was studying in Manikji Cooper. When I was very young, figured out that performing arts was something that I could spend all my time doing. I could work endlessly. I did Prithvi, which is a theatre.
Yes.
I was part of a theatre group. I spent 1 year doing that. So I would study, I would do my theatre, I would do my homework, and I would do it all over again. I did it for a year consistently. Didn't sleep much. 18-year-olds can go without sleeping much. I don't advocate it, but at that point I did. I could just give it my all. I just knew I wouldn't get tired. I knew I could go to any extent to make things happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like work. And my parents saw that. They saw the level of commitment I had towards it. And I truly believe, magic happens to those who believe in it. And I was that person who believed in magic. And I'm so thankful. My mother was mother is even till now a person who is always optimistic. She will never put things in a negative.
This can't happen.
No, she's like, the best is going to happen to you. And that's how I wake up. That's how I woke up even as a 13-year-old. And she knew that I will always. And I used to enter my house saying superstar. There was one film, some English stupid film, which had that one character go like superstar. I used to enter my house like that. So my mom saw that joy in me, and she was like, you know what? She was really scared when I started acting. So she was against it initially because she was like, what kind of industry is this? What kind of people are going to be there? But my dad was like, you know what? She has it in her, and she wants this. So I think it's a lot of support I had at that age. But I had a lot of difficulty in terms of I started working in the South. So
I want to ask you about that. Yeah. Like, so you basically build your career.
Yeah.
You start in the South.
Yes.
You don't speak the language. You today speak how many languages?
Telugu, Tamil, English, Hindi, Sindhi being the least.
Polyglot, right?
Yeah.
And it's culturally different.
Very.
How do you adjust? Do your parents move with you?
So when I was young, for 9 years, my mom and dad traveled with me on and off. They exchanged, cycles, and they kept coming and being with me. But what was the most difficult for me was to understand their culture. And that is something, when I did that, I also understood that for them, their language is something is very sacred to them. Like in Chennai, still, when I go there, I know that they will speak Tamil. They're very protective of their culture, which I think is really nice. I think India is so multicultural. I think we need to kind of, and there's so many lovely languages. There's so much to kind of feed off. And I felt like, this was a great opportunity for me. अगर मैं स्कूल या कॉलेज में होती तो मैं कोई कुछ सीख ही रही होती तो मैंने बोला मैं तमिल तेलुगु क्यों नहीं सीख रहा so I just started to learn Tamil and Telugu, and then in 5 years I could speak the language. And then seeing my dialogue paper every morning was in a heart attack because I could I started to take cues without a paper. So it simplified my life. I know of actors who are mortified the moment they get the dialogue paper because they're like, what if they change it? But I'm like, that's all they do. We're used to change. But for me, the biggest hurdle at that age was male egos, and it's still the biggest problem. I still feel that because
I'm just smiling because it sounds so familiar.
But it's in every sphere.
Yeah, of course. That's why it sounds so familiar.
I had some very, very, very sensible, supportive men around me also, but I did feel like I still had to tread carefully. Yeah,
Do you feel like you have to dial down your energy to accommodate the male ego, or do you just say, screw it, I'm not going to do it?
No, I just feel like I'm a person who believes in, to be able to, I feel like you have to earn it.
Yeah.
You have to earn your power, which I feel like today's generation, unfortunately, because of just constant validation and very instant validation, don't know how to earn your place. Today, when I say something to a filmmaker, they take me seriously, but that I have earned.
Yeah.
Whether I'm a male or female, I think that doesn't really matter in the equation. Sure. But I think in my case, I knew that I'm going to earn my respect. I'm going to earn my respect. I'm going to earn the fact that people think I'm a good actor. I didn't take anything for granted. I worked for everything. But I realized one thing, it's easier to change yourself than it is to change anybody else in the room. And I've also been very, very goal-oriented in the sense, I was like, for me, the final output, the film is what matters.
You know what I really like listening to you is that you're clearly ambitious and proud of it.
Yes. Why shouldn't a woman be ambitious?
Absolutely.
I think we must
Too few women are proudly ambitious.
Yeah, and I feel like there's no shame. I don't know why is this pressure on women to always... I've been someone who's responsible of my family, of myself, of my life. But I don't think it's important that you need to dedicate everything to everyone else except yourself. There is this holier than thou attitude for me doesn't work. You can't just be not taking care of yourself, not loving yourself just because you become great by being there for some other person.
You've spoken about male egos. There have been instances of women coming out in the industry, both in the film industry in Mumbai and in the South, with their own experiences of Me Too, with their own experiences of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that experience?
I think for me it never happened, probably because I had my parents always around. I heard of it in a lot of different professions.
Of course, this is not about the
not
films.
Just films.
It's
but
everywhere.
In my case, I think I did meet as much as I would like to say that I had my share of difficulties, I actually met a lot of good people as well. But I think if there was anything bad that was probably coming my way, got diverted because of my parents always being around. And by the time they weren't traveling with me, I think I was solid, very, very strong by myself.
One of the things you said was that you were pan-India name before people even understood what pan-India is, and you're there with Rajnikanth, with Chiranjeevi, with Amitabh Bachchan, and as you said, you felt like you had to earn that power.
I had to earn it.
How did they sort of treat you?
Oh, Chiranjeevi was one of my first people who kind of told me, you are going to become a star. This was when I was working with Charan, and I hadn't still made it yet. And I've seen how, say, Charan or even Chaitanya, Nagarjuna sir, someone I again look up to. I feel like they've all brought up their boys so gracefully. They're so well behaved. They're so cultured. They're so respectful. Chivalry again is rare in the world in general. In our country, sometimes even less so. But I do feel like with few men that I have worked, they're so chivalrous, so making sure that the woman on the set is comfortable. Chiranjeevi sir being one of them. Rajni sir really surprised me because he really I worked with him for one day, and he thought about me, and he bought me a book. And it's not like I've known him from before. I've interacted with him before. It's just about.
He bought you a book.
He bought me a book. He said,
What was the
you're
book?
on a spiritual journey, so here you go. You take this book, read it. It influenced me. I hope it helps you. It's just that then I realized these superstars are not just superstars like that. It's because they're actually just treating humans like humans. It's more basic. I think there's too much emphasis on gender and this and that. But हम एक दूसरे को इंसान जैसा ही नहीं treat करते. Even in our own crews, even in our own, like I find it really hard when I see people not treating their own staff properly. It starts, they say, charity begins at home.
Of course.
It has to start with your team. It has to start with your people. You have to look out for them. And then automatically the larger things fix itself.
So let me ask you in the end, since you wear your ambition with pride as it should be worn, what is that one thing, or maybe more than one thing, that you still want to do, that you have an ambition to do, that you haven't done yet? I mean, I know you write poetry when you're sad, but I don't just mean personal sort of ambitions or personal pursuits. What's the big ambition for Tamannah?
I think I still feel I have a long way to go in terms of my acting career. So that is very important to me. That is my primary, I don't know why, but it's like a soul calling of sorts. Like I feel like I need to channel my energies into playing different people. I feel like I've yet had a very small section that I've covered in terms of representation. I think I really need to put myself, because acting is my strength. So I want to use that for putting out better voices out there. But I know that in life I'll definitely want to work with children. I definitely want to work, in the space of education, because I feel like I learned whatever I learned through experience, but I understand the power of education.
Do you regret having dropped out of school?
No, I don't regret it. But I do feel like it's nice to be educated. It helps. It helps to be prepared in whatever field you choose to be.
Of course.
I had to learn everything, and I'm a student now for life, because I'm learning every day. Just because I didn't go to school, or I didn't go to college. School I went, of course. What am I saying? I didn't go to college, but I think I'm learning every day ever since. So I feel like education is a very important part. I would do something in that sphere. And with kids, I would love to do something with kids.
Well, more power to you.
Thank
May
you.
more women forge their own path
on
their own terms, with their own ideas of femininity and their own ideas of power, and at the very least, being paid as much as their male counterparts. And may all of us have it easier with male egos. Tamannaah Bhatia, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Barkha. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.